What happened in Buffalo on May 14th when a white supremacist came to town, shooting and killing 10 black people inside a supermarket, was unique to Buffalo. A white supremacist came to our town. But the problem of racism is nothing new in Buffalo. But days after all of this happened, the president came to town. A group of people were standing by, trying to get a glimpse of the president, and that's where I met Dean Lewis. He was outspoken, he was real, he was raw, and he was honest. And after meeting him and hearing his words about what his experience is like as a black man in Buffalo, I thought it was imperative we keep that conversation going.
Quiet on set and wherever you're comfortable,
Dean, I'm going to come at you hot, and I think this is a really important question off the bat. Since May 14th, what's changed for you as a black man in Buffalo?
Truthfully, not a lot. It's still the same things. You know, you're still looked at cross-eyed. You know, of course, when the incident first happened, everybody was much more open, much more relatable, so on and so forth. But as things go on, you know, if the conversations aren't being had like we talked about before, if it's not prevalent, then it's all the same. You know, so you still get, you know, the funny looks, you still get, you know, what are you doing here in this neighborhood, you know, things of that nature.
What do you mean when you say when it's not prevalent?
The reality of it is if there's nothing in front of people's faces, people have a tendency to turn a blind eye. People don't like to be held accountable, nor do they like to look in the mirror, you know, and we all have to do that. I have to do it, you know, and that's how you become a better person. That's how you become a person that people will look to, you know, for advice or look to for help or whatever the case may be, or just for some comfort.
So do you think, though, here we are almost 8 months since the shooting that was race-based by a white supremacist, do you think that we have kind of reverted to how we were before May 14th as a community?
In some respects, yes. But in other respects, no, because there are people who are still afraid to come out of their houses. There are still that neighborhood is never going to be the same. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they should have never rebuilt that Tops. They should have torn it to the ground. They should have raised it. And there was plenty of land in that area. Build a bigger Tops. Why is there a Tops, you know, over there built to handle 5,000 people, but it's a 20,000 person community? You know, this is ridiculous. Our neighborhoods don't get the attention that they should. You know, my wife and I drive through that area. We go, you know, to Tops over there. My mother lives over there. My daughter lives over there. My brother lives over there in that area, you know, 2 of my brothers and friends, you know, it's ridiculous. But we drive through there and you see so much desolation, you know, and it's not just there. You drive down Broadway, going towards the Broadway Market. So much desolation, so much just unused arid land that could be used, that could be brought to the forefront and made viable and make these neighborhoods what they once were.
So do you think, because there is so much money that has been allocated and dedicated and the financial resources are pledged to this part of the city, do you think change is slow, and do you think change is inevitable?
You know, we'll address the, you know, we'll just address the elephant in the room. Until the politicians and the people in power stop lining their own pockets, it's never going to happen, because we got $1 billion and Canal Side looks great, but how many streets on the east side have, you know, been repaved? You know, we talk about the snow removal, this storm we just had. Absolute and utter ridiculousness. They shut the city down You know, they're telling you about the South towns and how that area has been hit so impactful, so on and so forth. And we shut the city down in order to get the roads cleaned. But if you drove around the outskirts, Cheektowaga, West Seneca, Amherst, Tonawanda, you know, even out in West Seneca, the roads were clear. The minute you crossed into the city, it was a war zone. Makes no sense.
What's your assessment here? I mean, why do you think that is? Do you think that they're just not paying attention to the east side, or do you think that they are just stretched thin when it comes to resources?
In my lifetime, it's always been as if that area is ignored. Okay? It's a second thought. Mm-hmm. It's an afterthought. It's, it doesn't affect the people driving in to come to work. You know, it only affects them once they get here. And guess what? If they're coming across the expressway, the 33, the 190, whatever, guess what? They don't even have to really deal with it. You know, but it's the people who have to get on the bus. It's the people who have to catch an Uber. It's the people who have to walk. These are the people that I'm more concerned with, that I would like to see something done for. But again, it seems that it falls on deaf ears when you say something. Oh, we're going to get it done. But it never gets done.
So if you could speak to the governor right now, because she was steadfast in responding to the shooting with money, responding to this community, having seen a food desert, having seen all of the resources that have been swept away from the east side over the decades, what would you tell the governor?
Well, first of all, stop giving the money to the mayor and the common council and everything else. Why don't you set up an outside committee to allocate these funds, to get people? You have people like myself, you have nurses and doctors and teachers and educators and business owners who have great ideas and vision that could impact the east side and impact Buffalo in general in a magnificent way. But we don't ever see that. Somebody else makes a decision. Somebody at City Hall in an office building that doesn't even live within the city limits makes a decision about what's going to happen. You know, I don't want to see another one of these, and I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it, but these apartment buildings that they want to put up, don't they look like prisons to you? Look at how the windows are set up. Look at how the construction is. And then you have thin walls and you've got substandard, building that's going on. And then you want to charge people $1,200, $1,600. This is Buffalo, New York. Who makes enough money to pay $1,600 a month in rent? But this is what they're calling affordable housing.
Well, you bring up a good point too, because, from the other conversations that I've had in the last 8 or so months, a lot of the focus has been on generational wealth and how in Black families there is a lack of generational wealth.
Absolutely.
But that the systems had been set up so that there is a lack of generational wealth.
Education is massive. Is one of the most massive things that we're not taught in order to build generational wealth. In Black communities and Hispanic communities, you're not taught to buy property at a young age. You're not taught about, let's put money aside. Let's put it in an IRA. Let's put it in an annuity. Let's put it in these things in order to build for my retirement. The idea that we were given, that's taught to us, is that we go out, graduate from high school, and hopefully we can find a job at a factory or something along those lines that we can put 30 years in, 30 plus years in,
Break your back.
Right. So then by the time you do retire, you know what? You're not long for the living world. You might get to enjoy 5 to 10 years of your retirement, and the next thing you know, they're putting you in the ground. These things have to change. These are the important aspects of us being people, and being together, families and so on and so forth. But, in our communities, these things aren't taught. These are not even part of the, education. They don't teach you about balancing a checkbook. They don't teach you about, how you set up an account, build credit. None of these things.
Why not?
Well, first of all, let's go back in history. You look at redlining, you look at gentrification. They want minorities to be uneducated. They want you to be easily manipulated. They want to be able to, have identifiable markers. One of the biggest problems I have is that I am an anomaly. I don't fit anybody's card. I don't fit anybody's, description of what I should be, and I do my best to try to teach that to those I encounter. Break the mold, walk in the door, kick the door in and let them know, hey, I'm here. Come see me, and people don't necessarily like it, oh, you're aggressive. Oh, no, I'm not aggressive. I'm one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. I'm just not going to take people's garbage.
Now, let me ask you, because that's an interesting thing that you're saying. Do you think, and I think this is really the same thing for a lot of minority groups, women in particular, can be seen as negative because they are assertive. Jewish people, Hispanic people, Black people can be seen as aggressive, but it's not that you're aggressive. You're just saying, I'm here too.
Exactly. Reality, let's look at it this way. You made a great point, and it's something my wife and I talk about all the time. The big thing, when you watch an action movie or something like that, and they put a woman at the forefront, and you get all these people out here, who want to cry and be upset about it, and my biggest thing is, like I tell them all the time, it's not that there's an issue with, a strong woman being on the screen. That's a beautiful thing, but let her still be a woman. She doesn't have to walk around, having a banana waving contest. She doesn't have to be, butch, if you will, to be strong. If you look at the movie like the Black Panther, and especially this last one, Wakanda Forever, was a beautiful example of what I'm talking about. Every one of those women in that movie were still women. They were still beautiful. They were still desirable the whole night, but their strength was impeccable and undeniable. And people would say, oh no, that's emasculating. No, it's not. If you're a man and you know who you are, how is that emasculating? My wife is one of the strongest women I know, and she takes nothing from me. Not one little bit. Matter of fact, it adds to who I am. And that's what people have to learn.
Why? Why do you think your family is different? Why do you think your family has, I don't want to say risen above, I think that's the wrong term, but why do you think that you and your family are anomalies?
It's hard to say. I mean, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, my wife's family, her father, I won't say they're anomalies because these are the people we know, but but we're not the people that are seen. We're not the people that are going to be put in front of the lens for the rest of the world to see. They're going to give you the stereotypes.
In terms of what?
The world wants to give you the stereotypes. They want to show you that Black men are shiftless, lazy, we don't want to be fathers, we will abandon our families, so on and so forth. They want to portray our women as loose and promiscuous and, overly aggressive and things like that. And this isn't the case, because you know what? I could introduce you to hundreds of people just like me who are not even related to me, who are not even part of my family. The norm is, but society has a way of setting a narrative. And it does that for many people, many classes of people.
And I think that's why we're having this conversation together, because I think it's really important to put you in front of the lens, to say, we are here too. And what is portrayed perhaps in some media circles is not the norm.
No, it's not.
So why don't you tell me about where we are and tell me a little bit about why this place is important to you?
This is Iron Buffalo Coffee and Gaming. The proprietor of the store, William Waterrose, is a longtime friend. Him and I known each other for about 30 years now. You know, we worked when we were both younger in the bar scene, you know, Chippewa, all of that. But what's important about this place is that this is one of the things that I said when I told you before when we first met. I'm an uber geek. You know, I collect comic books. Well, as you can see around you, this is, you know, board games. There's role-playing games. There's miniature gaming here. And I come here on Saturdays. This is a place I come to decompress. Great cup of coffee, you know, great company. You get to introduce people to interactive storytelling. You know, most people, you know, think when you say something about role-playing games or say Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing they want to think about is the 1980s and the Satanic Panic. I lived through it, which was hilarious, you know. But that's not what it is. You know, this is just a social construct that you get to come in, you sit down, you get to tell a great story. You get to, it's make-believe for adults.
Yeah.
You know, I can be a superhero if I want to be. I can be, you know, a barbarian, you know, wielding a big two-handed sword and, you know, jumping on the dragon's back. This is what this is all about. And this is a great place because guess what? Everybody here kind of falls into that category of the outcast or the anomaly. You know, we don't put labels on people when you walk through these doors. Mm-hmm. We don't make you feel funny or different because you like something that isn't mainstream. And it is just it's a dream. You know what I'm saying? It's like living in a dream because guess what? Everybody comes in, you don't see ethnicities here. You don't see genders here. You don't see, you know, those things. What you see are common people mm-hmm. who like the same things you do.
In a perfect world, do you think that what happens in this room could be mimicked outside?
It could. I mean,
what would it take?
A little bit of acceptance, and people stop trying to line their pockets, stop trying to make a profit, and just be human. Let's look at the human condition. Everyone who sits in front of you, you know, has a life outside of what you see. Mm-hmm. You don't know what a person is contending with. You don't know. And if we all just showed a little bit more compassion, if we all just had a little bit more understanding and acceptance, we could work wonders. The world would be different.
You know, so here we are around a table, and so much of that conversation where we talk about compassion, where we talk about empathy, and we learn so much about who we are as people happens around a table like this. Mm-hmm. So where do you start?
You know, the unfortunate part about it is a lot of cases to seen, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be sitting here with you.
Likewise.
You took a liking to me. You liked the words I said. So now I'm being seen by at least the city of Buffalo, or whoever is going to see this. But it takes being able to be seen and be heard. That's number one. Number two, it does take a little bit of money. It does take a little bit of, withdrawal because, like I have an idea. I want to do a program called AMP. It's called A Man's Perspective. And because there's not advocacy for men. There's not, and especially men of color. Mm-hmm. There's not a place for us to go where we can feel it's okay just to be. And, so we need things like that, And the reality of it, even like with that program, my AMP program, the vision is that it's an advocacy program for men, but women are very much welcome. Please come, because you need to see your men in a vulnerable light and realize that they're still not anything less. As a matter of fact, they're more. Mm-hmm. And these are things that we have to do. We have to stop labeling people. We have to stop putting these ideological, overlays on people of what they're supposed to be.
This idea.
Exactly. And if we stop doing that, that's where it starts. and start letting people express themselves. Start letting people say what needs to be said. Because just because, I can drink 4 cups of coffee and still go to bed doesn't mean the next guy can.
Right.
You gotta make sure you're giving people room to be.
Dean, I'm interested because here we are. The shooter is in court today. And while he might not necessarily be physically present, his lawyers are having a conversation about the future of this case. And this is on a federal level. But on May 14th, this white supremacist came to Buffalo with an intention. And it was to kill as many black people as he could. In fact, in court, we heard that he even apologized to the one white person that he shot.
Yes, he did.
And held a gun over him and didn't shoot him again, despite shooting him once. That's when he apologized. But he's pleaded guilty to all of those state charges. First of all, I guess on a just very surface level, what do you make of all of that? The fact that he pleaded guilty to A, the charges, and B, admitting to being a white supremacist.
Well, what you make of it is the reality. These people exist. And we have to stop saying they don't. That's number one. Number two, let's stop just calling it a hate crime and call it what it is. That's domestic terrorism. You literally went with the intent of bringing terror to an entire community. These things have to be contended with. The KKK, the Proud Boys, all of these supremacist groups, all of these groups that call themselves white nationalists, they need to be dealt with.
How?
Put them on a watch list. We have, the United States government can do a whole lot of things. Put them on a watch list. Anybody known associated with them, you know what? If they have guns and things like that, take it from them. These people they shouldn't be able to hold places of power, offices of power. They should not have the ability to make decisions. They shouldn't be decision makers because this is ridiculousness.
You take their guns away, they argue it's a Second Amendment issue.
You take the guns away, you put it in the law. You build it in law. You got laws, you got the they put mental health rules in place for these individuals. You know what? So we can put into place, hey, guess what? If you're known to be involved with a known terrorist group, just like if you're a felon. If you're a felon, you can't get a pistol permit. You can't own weaponry. They're still members of the United States. They still fall under the Constitution. But you basically blew that right. You took it from yourself.
On a deeper level, the fact that this man is eligible for the death penalty on that federal level, what do you believe should happen to him?
To be honest, the death penalty, unfortunately, I would say is too easy.
Easy?
It's easy. That's a way out. You don't have to live and contend with what you did. Put him in a hole. Put him in a hole and let him contemplate what he's done for the rest of his days. Let him know that, you gave up your freedom because you decided to take life. You decided to take innocent life. It wasn't like we were fighting a war or anything else. This idea that I hear, that I've heard, I read the kids' manifesto, and they're talking about, the white race being, in decline and all of this kind of stuff. What stupidity. Because guess what? There is no such thing as the white race. There's no such thing as the black race. There's the human race. We're humans. One race. Because guess what? If we were different races, then that means, or different species, we couldn't reproduce. You know what? So shut up. Stupid. If you love somebody, it doesn't make a difference what the melanin content of their skin is. It's about the content of your character, of your heart. People need to stop with this stupidity. That is the biggest thing from beginning to end.
It's almost like we're in the 1960s again, and we're, channeling Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech. It's not the content of your character. It's not the color of your skin, but the content of your character.
Right.
This is 2022.
But you got people who don't want to let go. You've got people. I mean, let's really think about it. Think about when President Obama first got elected as president of the United States. No one could give you one derogatory thing that this man had ever done. No one could speak against his character. But yet and still, Mitch McConnell stood in front of national TV and said, I have a two-pronged plan here. One, to make sure this is a lame duck president and he gets one term, and to stand against every single policy he puts forth.
Do you think it's because he's black?
Absolutely. Because think about it, even when he put forth Republican ideology, they still fought it, which makes no sense.
Do you think it has anything to do with party lines?
No. Party lines, look, Democrats and Republicans are both the same thing. They're politicians. So I have no great love for either group. You know, they both do this, that, and the third. But the stupidity when you start really, you know, shooting people in the foot or causing people problems just because of the color of their skin makes no sense. You look at President Obama. We had him in term for 8 years, 2 terms as a president. Not a single scandal, not a single blemish. But yet and still, he had to fight tooth and nail to get every single policy passed that he wanted.
The color of his suit was a scandal.
The color of his suit was the biggest scandal. And
Right.
guess what? He looked really good. You know, I mean, what? You're just mad because you couldn't pull off a tan suit?
I would have looked good in it.
But I'm just saying that's the point. You know, what kind of silliness is this? You know, people. This is an issue, again, that I have because I put things to you in the most blunt, in-your-face manner. Show me where it's wrong.
When I was talking to Garnell Whitfield, whose mother Ruth was killed in that shooting, he told me that as a man of faith, the shooter will get his, basically.
Exactly.
But I wonder if by not sentencing him to death, does that embolden white supremacists to carry out actions moving forward? And let me explain why I'm asking that question. Because on one hand, he wanted to be alive. His goal was to stay alive. Mm-hmm. Are we providing him then that satisfaction that he's going to live, but you know, is almost like carrying out his plan?
Again, that's one of those situations you can say it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Reality of it should be that if we make an example, a strong example, you know, humans are not built to be isolated. Okay? And isolation is a terrible, terrible punishment. It is terrible. Just think about it when you were a kid and you got sent to your room and mom and dad took your books. You couldn't sit there and read. You couldn't play with your toys. You just had to go in your room and contemplate your actions. Versus capital punishment, you know, you get your butt whooped. Hey, guess what? It hurt for 30 minutes, you know, it's done. You went back to normal life. So look at it through those two lenses. You know, if you want to talk about emboldening, if these people know that, guess what, I'm going to be dropped in a hole for the rest of my natural years, you know, I'm going to be fed just enough to make sure I don't die. But that's it. You know, the most interaction you're going to get is, you know, when they let you, you know, walk around the yard for an hour a day. But other than that, you go back to your nice little dark hole. I don't know how many people are going to want to pick up their arms and decide, you know, versus a quick death.
Let me kind of put a bow tie on all of this. You know, we keep marking months, 8 months, 9 months. It'll be a year, it'll be 2 years, it'll be 3 years. On May 14th, 2023, where do you hope we are as a society and where do you hope we are as a community? And granted, that's not too far away.
Right. It'd be nice that if we could if we could, as a whole, just be a better group of people, that would be wonderful. Where we're going, I think we're going for much more of the same.
Dig in, a better group of people in terms of what?
In terms of tolerance, in terms of acceptance, in terms of just, allowing people to be. We need to start building our communities. As we said, we need to not be afraid to have these conversations. I can honestly say, Ed, thank you very much. I'm proud of you because you keep bringing, people like myself who are willing to answer the hard questions. You know what? You're keeping the conversation going. You're not letting people forget. And that what has to happen. We can't let people forget what has happened. We can't let people forget what is going on and what's not going on. These things are the crux of society getting better and growing.
You're making me emotional, Dean. 5 years from now, what are you hoping for? Because I feel like if we can learn from this, 5 years down the line, we might be better. We can be better.
We can be. 5 years from now, if at all, you know what? Let's not have to have these conversations like this. Let this be the history lesson. Mm-hmm. Let people be sitting around the table talking, oh man, I remember 5 years ago when I saw Ed and Dean on TV and they were saying how it would be nice to be able to, just go somewhere and be accepted. Look at me now. That would be great. I would hope for. I would hope for, more people just being willing to listen, because our experiences are different. Yeah. Our growth is different. And that's the biggest thing. We have to take a step back from ourselves for just a few seconds and hear what the other person is saying.
Put ourselves in somebody else's shoes.
Absolutely. Because, you don't understand it. We don't understand sometimes. Somebody might give you a call and say, hey, how you doing? But that, hey, how you doing is actually, oh my God, I need to talk to you. We need to be able to start hearing those things. Mm-hmm. Because you got some people who don't have the acumen. They don't have the withdrawal. They don't have the know-how to just say, help me.
Yeah. My grandpa always used to say, be a listener.
Exactly. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you'll hear the undertone. You'll hear what's not being said out loud, but it's still being said.
Good?
You good?
Anything else you want to say?
I don't know why I was expecting you to.
I was expecting you to close it with like something, and I'm at.